Sekiro is my first FromSoft game and is my favorite FromSoft game even after Elden Ring and its DLC. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Sekiro has one of the best, if not the best combat system in gaming history. I love how simple, fluid, yet deep the combat is. I love Sekiro so much that every time I replay the campaign, I always unlock all the endings and fight all the bosses, even the ones I don't like. Anyways, you're not here to listen to me gush over how much I love Sekiro. You're here because you want to hear me rank all the bosses, specifically the main bosses, no mini bosses. I'll talk about the way these bosses work, how to beat them, what combat art to use, recommended prosthetics, and a little bit of lore. My rankings is mostly just my overall opinion on these guys. Most of the gameplay footage is mine, but I'll also be using clips from other channels as well. Don't worry, if I do use clips that aren't mine, I'll credit the original owner. I'm also going to analyze these bosses when played on New Game Plus 7 and beyond, or in the Reflection of Strength, and without Kuro's Charm and the Demon Bell on, because to me, that's the best way to play this game. Anyways, let's get started. Starting with not Gyoubu Oniwa, but the intro boss, Genichiro Ashina. I don't want to talk about the samurai a lot for now because I have much more to say about him later. But basically you're supposed to lose to this guy. Before Genichiro, all the prior enemies have attacks that can be parried. However, Genichiro will throw a curveball using perilous attacks, either thrust or sweep. New players will not know this because there's no tutorial explaining what to do in the face of perilous attacks. That's a good idea on the developer's part because it reinforces the idea that you're meant to lose in this fight. On New Game Plus, this fight is a joke because you now have access to all the combat arts you unlocked from your previous playthrough, but most importantly, you have the knowledge to counter his perilous attacks. If you lose to him in gameplay, he will simply chop off your right arm and say, "Shinobi tote kono teido ka." If you beat him in gameplay, he will be overwhelmed for a moment. Then Wolf gets distracted by a nightjar projectile thrown at him. In that moment of distraction, Genichiro will chop off Wolf's right arm and say, "Shinobi, hikyou to wa iumai na." The fact that Genichiro had to use a distraction to beat Wolf is telling of the kind of person Genichiro is. But I'll talk more about his character later. Either scene will result in the young Lord Kuro getting kidnapped, while you're left to die in the middle of the flower field. This tutorial boss is well done for what it's meant to be. It sets you up for defeat very well, at least canonically. And I like how it briefly sets up the roots for Genichiro's and Wolf's rivalry. B tier. Okay, now I can talk about Gyoubu Oniwa. But first... My name is Gyoubu Masataka Oniwa! As I breathe, you will not pass the castle gate! When he comes out of the gates, you can run up to him and get free damage in. I like to burn him with the flame vent while he's in this animation. When you get in enough damage, he will run away and back towards you. The moment he turns around, if you are not too far from him, there will be a green symbol on him which will let you use the grappling hook. When he's grappled, he'll be staggered, allowing you to get in some free damage. He can detach the tip of his spear and twirl it around you 3 times. While you can grapple onto him like this, I don't recommend it because he won't get staggered, and the spear can still damage you while you're flying towards him. So it's better if you just stay put and deflect the swings. He has a thrust that can't be Makiri countered. His horse can be staggered with the firecrackers, exposing him to free damage. Just note that his horse will be immune to firecrackers if you don't wait about 30 seconds before using them again, so don't spam them. There is a catch with the firecrackers during his second phase. If you use them, he'll be stunned like normal, but he will surprise you with an overhead slam. So after stunning him, get 1 to 2 hits in and either dodge or parry the overhead slam. Although you can use a cheese strat where you get up on top of this roof and make him fall to his death, if you're a new player, just don't. There is no reason to use a cheese method on the first boss of the game, other than speedrunning. Aside from having a Mimi English intro, not much is known about his background. He was the former leader of a group of bandits and was taken in by Ashina after his defeat to Isshin. He then became Genichiro's retainer and the keeper of Ashina Castle's gates. Fun fact, did you know that the spear he uses belonged to the deceased General Tamura, who Isshin killed in the game's introduction? He's a well done first boss. Most of his attacks are well choreographed. I like how your reward for successfully deflecting certain combos causes him to stagger, exposing him to free damage. I also like how his thrust is the only thrust that can't be Mikuri countered, giving him some unique boss identity. However, due to the little lore we have, I think B tier is fair. Next is Lady Butterfly. Although Lady Butterfly is optional for 3 out of the 4 endings, I still consider her to be the second boss Wolf fights chronologically. Gameplay wise, she doesn't have to be the second boss you take on. For this fight, I like to force her into this defensive state. She blocks the first 2 swings and deflects the third. Then repeat this pattern to quickly build up posture damage. Just be mindful, don't be on autopilot mode with this strat. Occasionally, she will break out of the loop and use sweep to catch you off guard. She can leap onto the thin rafters to evade. When she jumps off them, you can throw shurikens to knock her out of the air, staggering her. Wait for her to leap off the rafters before you throw the shurikens, or else she will deflect them, resulting in a waste of spirit emblems. During her second phase, she will summon illusions, turning the boss fight into a 1 versus many situation. While you're occupied with the illusions, she will regenerate posture quickly. You can dispel these illusions if you have Snapseeds. I like to stand in the middle of this area where you'll be surrounded to banish all the illusions at once. If you don't have Snapseeds, you can try to kill them one by one with a single sword swipe. They die in 1 hit. Or you can run around the arena and wait for some time to pass, in which Lady Butterfly will turn the spirits into a magic stream of butterflies at you. She also has this 6 combo chain which she initiates by summoning magic butterflies. At the end of the chain, she will follow up with the sweep. Those magic butterflies she summons at the start can also be snap-seeded, though to be honest I've never been successful at pulling this off. Now to be honest, I don't enjoy fighting her. Deflecting her kunais is inconsistent, resulting in me getting chip damage from being charmless. Her illusions are very disruptive, ruining the flow of the combat and allowing her to quickly regain posture. The illusions are even more terrible to deal with for new players, since the dude who gives you Snapseeds before the boss only gives you a measly 1. Only 1 Snapseed. So if you die and you already use up the Snapseed, this fight will be even more drawn out. You can get more Snapseeds if you go to this area here after the first giant snake encounter, but most newer players will not know that. Like Gyoubu, not much is known about her character and lore. She was employed by Owl to teach Wolf the way of the shinobi. I don't know why she fights you and what business she had with Kuro prior to the boss fight. I think it's a little funny when she kills you, she will say this. But after you defeat her, she says, it's like she's promoting you from puppy to wolf, which is kind of cute. Despite my complaints, I don't dislike her as a boss fight, but I don't like it either. It's satisfying to smack her in the air. I think I may like her boss more if I mastered deflecting her attacks rather than use a pseudo exploit, but not by much. C tier. Genichiro Ashina is one of my favorite bosses in this game. He's actually my most favorite character in all of Sekiro. For new players, this boss serves as a skill check, testing whether you've learned to parry, to Mikuri, and to jump kick. When the battle starts, he will always fire off an arrow. Try to stay on and be aggressive on him while switching between attacking and deflecting. He will sometimes leap in the air for an overhead slam, which you can parry. If you parry the overhead slam, Genichiro will always follow up with a thrust. For the first phase, he will always go for the thrust. If he gets parried enough, Genichiro will use the floating passage, which is an 8-hit combo that can be successfully parried using the loaded umbrella. If you want to parry this attack, I recommend just using only the umbrella to do it, since using sword parries can be inconsistent. Otherwise, just leap away from it or use firecrackers. Sometimes he will back up a bit and shoot 4 arrows at you. I always deflect the first 3 shots and then dodge forward into the 4th delayed shot. His second phase for the most part will be very similar to first phase with just one change. After the overhead slam, he'll always follow up with a sweep. This is a good idea to catch players off guard who are used to the thrust. He'll sometimes do a thrust in this phase, but for the most part, it'll be a sweep. In his third phase, he becomes more aggressive and uses lightning. He will always start the third phase with a leaping thrust. His overhead slams now have each a 33% chance of being followed up with a sweep, a normal thrust, or a back horizontal slash that when parried will be followed up with a thrust. If you perfectly parry his floating passage, he will always follow up with a thrust. I don't know if Genichiro loves thrusting or just loves getting Mikiri countered. It's no wonder why he lost to Owl in the Shura ending. But the most notable attack in his third phase is lightning. Newer players will avoid the lightning by sidestepping because they don't know how to do the lightning reversal. And to be honest, it's not their fault. The game sucks at explaining how to do a proper lightning reversal. The 3 ways of doing a lightning reversal is by 1. Jumping in the air, catching it with either your body or sword if you have the mid-air deflect skill, and throw it back with the attack button. Number 2, use the Mist Raven at the moment lightning hits you without pressing any directional buttons, and throw it back when Wolf reappears in the air. And 3, using the combat art Sakura Dance, which can only be unlocked after completing the Gauntlet of Strength Divine Air. Like I said before, Genichiro is one of my favorite bosses and is my most favorite character in Sekiro. The lengths he will go to in order to save Ashina is admirable. He learned the power of lightning from his mentor, Lady Tomoe, who was also a powerful swordswoman, and lightning is considered a heretical art, meaning it's an unorthodox tactic to the Ashinians. He drank the rejuvenating waters, which is an imperfect, corrupt solution to immortality. He even says, "Ningen wo yameyou." This quote reminds me of a certain half-human, half-demon from a Capcom franchise who will also cast aside his humanity in the pursuit of power. He does more inhuman acts later to save Ashina, but I'll get to that much later in the video. I have a lot to say about Genichiro, trust me. I do think this iteration of Genichiro is too easy though. However, there is another version of Genichiro that I will discuss much later. For now though, A tier is appropriate for this edgy samurai. Fun fact, did you know that Genichiro's Japanese voice actor is Kenjiro Suda, the Japanese voice actor for Seto Kaiba from Yu-Gi-Oh? Next, we have another one of my favorites, the Guardian Ape. I recommend the Flame Vent as he will be in this burned animation exposing him to free damage, and Firecrackers, which all beast-type enemies, including this ape, is weak to. Like with Gyoubu's horse, you need to wait for about 30 seconds before you can use it again. While you can deflect most of his attacks, this is one of 2 bosses in the game where it's better to whittle down his health like a Dark Souls boss. If you stand behind him, he will fart that builds up poison and runs away from Wolf. He'll literally grab poop out of his ass and fling it at you. It's better to just run away from the feces, but you can parry the poop if you want. After defeating him, there will be a strange calm, giving the player a brief period to recompose themselves as the now Headless Ape pulls a large sword out of the ground. Try to parry most of the Headless Ape's attacks. The most important attack you want to parry is the overhead slam, which will happen when deflecting this easy 2-hit combo or this 7-hit combo. He will fall to the ground exposing his neck. You can use a loaded spear to yank out the centipede out of its neck, dealing massive vitality and posture damage. The immortal bestowing centipede in its body explains why the Headless Ape's movements are so jittery, which is a cool detail if you ask me. The most strange attack from the Headless Ape is the terror-inducing roar, which, like the adjective implies, builds up the terror status. You can run away from the roar or use the loaded umbrella to deflect at the right time. The reason why I say this is a strange attack is because you can use any variation of the umbrella to deflect the roar. You can use Suzaku's Lotus, which is used for negating fire damage, or use the basic version of the umbrella as well. It won't build up terror status as long as you time it right. Normally, when you want to deflect terror-inducing attacks, you would either use Define Confetti or the Phoenix Lilac Umbrella. Deflecting with any other variation of the umbrella will build up terror, but for some reason, against the roar, it doesn't. I don't know why this is a special case, but I think it's pretty cool. The Guardian Ape is one of my favorite bosses in the game. It's a departure from the typical blade-wielding bosses like Genichiro and Gyoubu, who are better handled via deflecting, whereas the ape is taken down via damaging its vitality. The story of the Guardian Ape is pretty sad as well. By through unknown means, it became undying and grew very old while his mate passed away. It became very lonely and wanted another mate. It tended to the lotus of the palace, the flower you collect after you defeat the ape, since it attracted female apes. When you give the sculptor the finger whistle, a reward for killing the ape the first time, and monkey boost to drink, you'll learn that it killed the sculptor's partner, Kingfisher, a female shinobi that the sculptor trained with in the Sunken Valley. Some players will have the Mortal Blade at this boss fight and will be confused as to why the wolf doesn't use it to sever the centipede. The reason is because canonically the wolf went to retrieve the lotus flower first before acquiring the Mortal Blade. Overall, the Guardian Ape is a great departure from the blade-wielding bosses. It's a very fun boss once mastered, and I like the false sense of security before the second phase. It's too bad I have less positive things to say about the ape much later. A tier for now. Here's the easiest boss in the game, the Folding Screen Monkeys. This is a gimmick boss, and to kill these simians, you must approach these guys methodically. You see, these monkeys are based off of the four wise monkeys, who embody the proverb, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, and do no evil. Each of these monkeys are based off of each line of that proverb. The purple monkey, see no evil, has poor hearing and will run away when he sees you approaching him, even if you have gachin sugar on. The green monkey, hear no evil, has poor sight and will run away if it hears you approaching him. The orange monkey, speak no evil, will alert other monkeys when it sees you, causing the other monkeys to flee. And the fourth white monkey, do no evil, is invisible, and follows you from behind as indicated by these glowing white footprints. Unlike the wolf, who sneak behind to backstab his enemies, the white monkey will not attack you from the rear, hence the line, do no evil. Also, the white monkey doesn't appear on this panel of monkeys, which is a hint that it's invisible. A cool detail if you ask me. Two of these monkeys can be lured to different areas of the arena that have objects that renders them vulnerable to a death blow. For example, the purple monkey can be pushed into this dark room, or this brightly lit room where if you open this door, a gust of wind will pour in, snuffing out all the flames. The green monkey can be pushed near this bell where if you ring it, it'll be so loud, blowing out its eardrums, putting it into a death blowable state. Or you can push it into this room where the sound of the crashing waterfall has the same effect. But honestly, there's an easier strat to dispatching these monkeys in under 1 minute. First, before you trigger the cutscene, pop a gachin sugar to give yourself invisibility and to suppress the sound of your own movements. Once you regain control of the wolf, immediately turn around to kill the white monkey behind. Then run to this roof here to approach the orange monkey, who will always go in this direction if he doesn't notice you at the start of the boss fight, and backstab him. Then jump down to this part of this tree here to sneak behind the green monkey and backstab him. Finally, follow this path that I'm taking to push the purple monkey into this dark room, where you can go ham on it. Just ignore the apparition monkeys on the way. If you follow this exact strat, you should beat this minigame in under a minute. No need for prosthetics and combat arts. If you mess up and the monkeys are all over the place, you can use the elusive bell hall to reset the position of the monkeys. But then again, this boss is so easy, so there's no need for it. Now, as for the lore of the monkeys, I have to piece together with what little we're given. According to its memory and remnant, the monkeys guarded the halls of illusions, which lie on the border of life and death. Departed souls of the divine children, aka the children of rejuvenation, drift and sway, taking shelter in the monkeys of the temple. Such is why the divine child of rejuvenation speaks of them, the monkeys, as friends. The Hall of Illusions is basically where the souls of children who were victims of the Senpu monks' immortality experiments depart to. I find the guarding the hall part contradictory to the nature of these monkeys since they don't even attack you throughout the boss fight. After all, these monkeys are based off the proverb that basically means ignore bad deeds and evil, but if so, why do they summon apparition monkeys that can attack you? Isn't violence by any means considered evil as well? I'm not sure. Also, why does the divine child of rejuvenation allows us to speak with her and doesn't punish us for killing the monkeys? I think to me, the monkeys we fought are just illusions. After all, this is the Hall of Illusions as the name would imply. Or maybe we did kill them and they somehow resurrected back to life in this border between life and death. But that's just my speculation. I'm not going to read into it too much. The folding screen monkeys are the easiest boss in the game. They do have an interesting lore despite the questions I have. However, they're just a chore on repeat playthroughs. C tier. Oh boy, Headless Ape. Specifically the Headless Ape and the Ashina devs. Let's get this out of the way. The Headless Ape this time is arguably the worst boss in the game. And while I do agree with that sentiment, I don't think it's as bad as you might think. Let's break it down. The first phase is the same as the previous Headless Ape fight. Only one little change is that when it does the high jump sweep, it will always follow up with an overhead slam that you can parry and use the spear. The real kicker is, upon entering second phase, the Headless will call his mate to join in, and this is where the combat starts to fall apart. Sekiro has one of, if not the best combat system in all of gaming. However, the combat is truly at its best in 1v1 situations. When you're against 2 or more enemies, the combat becomes clunky. The female ape has the same movesets as the OG Guardian Ape, minus the fart and poop throw. She will only attack after the Headless attacks, or if you deflect certain attacks from the Headless. What sucks about this fight is that you're forced to divide your attention on both of them. The camera can be a nuisance, and sometimes you can't see where one of the apes are because you're locked onto one of them, whereas the other can gank you on your blind spot. To fight this boss normally, it's best to focus only on deflecting the Headless Ape while dodging and avoiding his mate. You only need to kill the Headless to pass, so don't worry about killing the second ape. She just gets sad and dies alone, I guess. Try to keep your camera with both apes in view so you can react accordingly, and look for deflecting opportunities that will force the Headless to perform the overhead slam. Just note, when you use the spear to pull the centipede out, the mate will always perform a leaping slam, so be prepared to deflect at the moment the pull animation ends. For most bosses, I prefer to fight them legit, but this strat I explain is so tedious. There's 2 more strats you can use to speed it up. The first is saving up on your spirit emblems, and spam all your firecrackers on the moment the female lands. Try to do this quick before the Headless gets out of its roar animation and starts attacking you. If not, avoid its attacks and continue to spam firecrackers at the female since her posture recovers quickly. After killing the female, you can 1v1 the Headless, the way this boss was meant to be fought. The second strat is lesser known and was showcased in Ongbal's second Mortal Journey video. To do this, lure the Headless to this end of the arena and fight it normally while keeping it here. Then after the first death blow, spam the Mortar Blade to deal massive damage, but most importantly, keep it stunned so he never reaches the spot where he roars to summon his mate. I'll be honest, I tried this strat a few times but never been successful with it, which is why I have to show Ongbal's clip here. While this is more work than the firecrackers, I'll admit, it's the best alternative I've seen to fighting the ape normally. You can finally use the mortal blade to sever the centipede, putting the guardian ape to rest at last. Based on what I read from the Fextra Life wiki, you can leave the fallen ape as is and proceed to the next arena. It won't come back and re-fight you, even if you complete the game, but I have to test this out to confirm it. The reason why I say it's not as bad as you think is because at least there's a consistent strategy to beat it, even if the fight itself can be inconsistent. This boss is mandatory at first, but if you reach Mibu village before fighting the guardian ape, then it becomes optional. With that being said, this is the worst boss in the game. It sucks for me that it ruins the OG guardian ape fight in Bohitsova Valley, especially since it is one of my favorite bosses. Though I can make this fight optional, I'm still gonna fight it anyway because I love this game a little too much. However, I'm still gonna give it the lowest honor of D tier. And I hope FromSoft never makes a duo boss like this again. At the end of Mibu Village, my least favorite area in the game is the false corrupted monk. I'm calling it false because this is an illusion of the true corrupted monk much later. This boss is very simple, but it's dragged out by the fact that she has very fast recovery to her posture. You have to chip away at her HP while countering her attacks. Now this rule goes for all enemies, but this is a bigger issue for this monk because it drags out the duration of this fight longer than it should. Normally you prevent fast recovery by doing enough damage to their health, but she takes very little damage to her vitality with Kusabi Maru, unless you proc Divine Confetti. You can stun her with firecrackers and Fistful of Ashes to get in some more hits with your katana in between usage. You can also use up to 3 Snap Seeds or 3 usages of the Lazuli Axe, though be careful on the 3rd use as she will retaliate in response. She becomes immune to Snap Seeds and Lazuli after the 3rd use. Most of her attacks are very simple to deflect. They're well choreographed and this is a big arena, so the camera shouldn't be an issue. Honestly, this boss is so boring with how simple and prolonged it is that every time I replay the campaign, I use the cheese strat, which I'm so surprised that it hasn't been patched. To do the cheese, before entering the arena, make sure you have enough Snap Seeds, Fistful of Ash, Spirit Emblems, and Firecrackers. The way it works is that when you enter the arena, hug the very left side and go around all the way to the back to get in behind the monk. She will spawn but will not notice as long as you stick to the left. Then use up to 2 Snap Seeds, spam Firecrackers, and Ashes from behind. Each usage causes her to back up. The key is to get her to back up close enough to this pillar here, which you can jump off of, to deliver a plunging death blow, ending the fight in less than a minute. For new players, I recommend fighting her legit as a warm-up to the true corrupted monk, but after many new game pluses, I don't care if you use the cheese strat. Like Lady Butterfly, I don't dislike nor like this boss. It's a tedious fight, but it's still an easy fight. I mentioned before that Mibu Village is my least favorite area in the game. I always hold W to the end of the arena, and use the cheese strat just to not waste any more time here. Don't worry though, I have more positive things to say about the corrupted monk much later. C tier for now. When we get to the top of Ashina Castle after returning from Mibu Village, we are faced with a decision to either forsake Kuro and obey the Iron Code, or disobey the Iron Code and stay loyal to Kuro. Each choice leads to a different boss, so I'm gonna start with the boss of the Shura path, the ending you get if you forsake Kuro. Emma the Gentle Blade is essentially a warm-up to Isshin Ashina, the final boss of the Shura ending. Her attacks are well choreographed, despite being shorter than Wolf. The most notable attack she has is the 4-hit flurry, where she will back up for an initial charge strike, and the last hit after being parried will cause her to stagger. She has a grab attack that can only be deflected with the umbrella. Otherwise, you can dodge it if you can't get the timing right. If she does grab you, she will follow up with a circular downward slash to finish you off, You actually have a second to dodge before you get hit by the downward slash. She can also perform the Ashina cross, which means that she mastered the Ashina arts, a nod to her being trained by Isshin. It sucks. If you want to master this boss, you must be willing to kill the only beautiful woman in this game, who also aids you in your journey. Thankfully, FromSoft gave this game a boss rush update, which allows me to refight her and Isshin Ashina without having to do the Shura ending. I can just look up the Shura ending on YouTube. To be honest, I don't know what to rate her. I don't want to put her in D because that would imply this is a really bad boss from a gameplay aspect. She's ironically a well-designed boss despite it being a warm-up. I don't want to put her in B either because that would imply that I do enjoy fighting her, even though I don't from a moral standpoint. I think C is a good middle ground. But let's get to the real star of this ending, Isshin Ashina. Unlike Emma, his attacks are a little slower, but he hits way harder to make up for it. The Suzaku's Lotus Umbrella is so powerful in this fight, since it deflects all of his attacks, including negating all fire damage in his second phase. There's the famous whoosh sidestep of disrespect if you go for a basic sword swipe or a thrust on him. I kinda like the disrespect, to be honest. It makes sense why he would do this since he's sick and old, and he's no longer in his prime unlike his other ending counterpart, so he has to take care of his body better. After the first death blow, he will always go into this whining phase where he will unleash a double sword swipe, and if you're not confident in deflecting it, use firecrackers to cancel it. After the double sword swipe, he will charge at you while pillars of flames erupt from the floor. Quickly move into a safe area away from these smoldering spots. Once he reaches you, he will use his signature combat art, his own version of Virgil's judgment cut, One Mind. As scary as it seems, you can actually deflect it with either sword parries or use the umbrella. He can unleash a wave of flames at you, which can be deflected with the umbrella if you're close enough, and his double Ichimonji can be deflected as well with the umbrella if you well position yourself. I'm telling you, the umbrella is the most broken tool in this game. It's that good. Isshin is my second favorite character and has one of the best boss fights in this game. From the moment we met him as the Tengu, to sharing stories with you after giving him sakes, to being an old badass who fights you while being sick, mind you, to having one of the best boss fights in the game. After 9 bosses evaluated, Isshin Ashina gets the highest honor of S tier. Now, let's get to what happens if you disobey your daddy and his iron code. I love the cutscene that plays prior to his fight. Owl attempts to sneakily backstab Wolf, only to be stopped by the latter. Owl tells him that he's grown just a little, meaning that Wolf definitely learned his lesson after the Hirata Estate incident. 3 years ago, he was stabbed in the back by an unknown assailant after killing Lady Butterfly. Now in the present, it's kind of implied that Wolf knew the assailant was his adoptive father. The best strat is to let him do all the attacking while you chip and parry. He will usually lightly throw down an anti-healing ball that prevents the wolf from using healing items before going for heavy hitters. If you play enough Sekiro, then you should be able to no damage this boss, so getting debuffed won't matter. When he uses double shuriken into an overhead slam, I mostly deflect the latter with Suzaku's umbrella, followed by the projected force, or I can dodge around the slam and use a Shino cross. He can throw a single shuriken, then do a heavy horizontal slash that can blow you back if you do a normal sword parry. It's better to use the umbrella in this case. The Suzaku's umbrella can be used to safely parry his firecracker slash. The most infamous attack is his Mikiri counter, and unlike yours, it can one-shot you even at full health. He will only Mikiri counter you if you do a basic thrust or use the spear. I didn't believe this at first until I started making this video, but apparently, even though the Shadow Rush combat art is a thrust, he won't Mikiri counter it. I don't know why. Owl Father can do it, but not Great Shinobi Owl for some reason. You can still go for thrust on Owl, only when he's stuck in certain animations though. Oh yeah, and if he breaks your posture, he'll stomp on you while you're on the ground for a death blow of his own. After the first death blow, he will get on his knees and beg you to spare him. If you choose to attack him in this state, he will throw smoke and claim that he's proud of how much you've grown. A nod to the wolf not tolerating his fake tears anymore. If you just walk up to him, he will still throw smoke and call you a fool. You should know by now that he's a great Shinobi Owl and will do anything to win his battles. During the second phase, he will pop smoke and perform a heavy horizontal slash while you're in it. You can either deflect it if you see him through the smoke, or use the Mist Raven to get a sneaky fanging blade back in him. He will always follow up his shuriken throws with throwing poison at the ground. He can either continue to attack you after throwing down the poison, or recover his posture. If you see him go for a posture recovery, you can stop it by using either shurikens of your own or chuck a ceramic shard. The previous bosses usually have a preferred set way of fighting them when it comes to combat arts, prosthetics, and items, but what I love about this boss is the many combinations of tools and arts to approach this guy. My anti-Great Shinobi Owl set is the Mist Raven for the smoke, the umbrella, Ashina cross, and ceramic shards. But you can use shurikens, the flame vent to burn him when he's free, shadow rush, the mortal draw. I mean, there's room for versatility in this fight, and it makes sense since you're both shinobis, warriors who will win their battles by any means necessary. Honestly, I don't really have any complaints about this fight other than the occasional camera issues, and the fact that it's actually better to play a bit more passive and let him initiate the attack chain. Other than that, this is a solid mid-game boss that makes you feel like you're fighting a shinobi. A tier he goes. We're heading to Fountainhead Palace. I always visit Harada Estate the second time to fight the man who betrayed Wolf 3 years ago, Owl Father. I always found it strange how, upon arriving in the arena, Owl is standing there with his back towards you, and you can either attack him or talk to him. Either way, he reacts to your presence as if he knew you would come back here to face him. I'm not sure why he behaves like this. I mean, he was the one who killed you 3 years ago, right? So wouldn't he be surprised that you're still alive? Anyways, first phase Owl Father plays similar to Great Shinobi Owl, but this time he's much more aggressive, and doesn't use poison and anti-healing charms. Like the other Owl fight, you let him do all the attacking to break his posture. He can occasionally perform a Shadow Rush for you to Mikiri counter, or if you're ballsy enough, parry it, then parry his Shadow Fall. And the Suzaku's Umbrella is your best friend. During second phase, Owl will phase in and out of battle after being deflected a number of times, or if enough time passes. He can turn the spirit owl that follows him into a flaming projectile that you can jump over, which he will follow up with a Shadow Rush. I much prefer this owl than the one at Ashina Castle because of the faster pace, while the other forces you to be more passive. I like that you can Mikiri counter this owl as well. If there's one change that I would make, it's that I wish he followed up his Shadow Rush with the Shadow Fall, regardless if it gets Mikiri countered or not. If you think about it, it makes sense from a lore perspective. Owl knows that his Shadow Rush is a thrust, and can be Mikiri countered. Therefore, in the event that it does get Mikiri countered, he can surprise his ops with the Shadow Fall. This is genius, and it makes Owl live up to the Great Shinobi title he has. And this is a thing if you play the Resurrection mod, a mod that overhauls and improves the gameplay mechanics of the base game. This was a missed opportunity on the developer's part. I love his final words to Wolf before he passes. Despite trying to kill him, maybe he did love his son after all, but at least he acknowledged that his son has surpassed him. While Great Shinobi and Father are two distinct bosses, I would say that Father is a massive improvement over the former, and he's up there in my top 5 Sekiro bosses. S tier. After defeating past Daddy, we can finally advance to the Fountainhead Palace where we are greeted by a familiar monk. The corrupted monk. The real one this time. The true monk's first phase is exactly like the illusion. The monk's second phase is her first phase, but now she can disappear and summon 3 illusions that will attack you and dissipate 3 times before returning to fight. You can skip this second phase by, upon inflicting the first death blow, immediately grapple on this tree branch here and wait for her to appear in the middle of the bridge. Lock onto her, jump off, and deliver a plunging death blow. This isn't really a cheesing if you think about it. The devs made this tree grappleable for a reason. It's a reward for players who pay attention to the environment and acts on the premise that you're a shinobi. You'll win through any means necessary, so no need to drag out this fight longer than necessary. Upon entering third phase, an immortal centipede will emerge from her neck, meaning this monk will need to have its immortality severed. She will always start third phase with this whirlwind attack. She can now spit goo, which does damage and inflicts terror if you let it build up. I don't know why the goo causes terror, but you can deflect it with the purple umbrella. This one attack where she slams down her naginata comes out real quick, so watch out for it. This is a solid improvement over the false version. Even though she has 3 phases, the duration of this fight feels appropriate than how dragged out the one phase fake was. There's not enough information provided by the game to learn about Priestess Yao. I did learn from the Fextra Life wiki that she's based off of a Japanese folk story of Yao Bikuni, which I'll leave y'all to do your research because I don't want this video to be longer than the False Monk's fight. Overall, she's a fun boss and is kinda underrated. B tier. After a long trek through the Fountainhead Palace, what awaits us in the end is the Divine Dragon. I'm gonna skip old dragon heads of the tree because nobody cares about them. The Divine Dragon is another unique gimmick boss where the primary means of offense is lightning reversal. When you see these withered trees glow with electricity, you grapple onto those trees where you'll be struck by lightning to throw them back at the dragon. For some reason, unlike all the other times when you can do the standard lightning reversal, you don't take chip damage here. I guess this is the devs telling the player that this is the only and intended way to defeat the dragon, so it wouldn't be fair to take damage by the only means to 1v1 this godly serpent. Although, I've seen Ongbal use the Mortal Blade on it and dance around its attacks. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into the moveset because the boss is easy to beat. There is some interesting lore and research regarding the Divine Dragon. You can read more about it on the Fextra Life wiki. This video is getting too long anyways. I would like to point out that, like Wolf in the Sculptor, it also only has one arm. Overall, this gimmick boss is special because the spectacle is spectacular. The music is serene and majestic. The remnant that explains that the Divine Dragon is from the West, presumably China, is quite fascinating. And I do find it quite sad that the wolf has to rob the dragon of its tears in order to achieve immortal severance, or purification, or homecoming, depending on what ending you go for. B tier. Let's deviate from the main story path and teleport ourselves away to where Gyoubu the demon was fought and face the demon of hatred, who is the sculptor. If you play the game normally, the wolf won't know who the demon is, but you can complete a few steps to unlock hidden dialogue in which the wolf will recognize the sculptor during the battle. To do this, before meeting Great Shinobi Owl at the top of Ashina Castle, go back to the dilapidated temple and head around towards the back and eavesdrop on Emma and the sculptor. After their talk, rest at the nearby sculptor idol and go back inside to talk to the sculptor again. He will state that he wants Wolf to be the one to kill him, not Emma. Then proceed with the rest of the game and fight the demon of hatred. This must be done before meeting Owl at Ashina Castle, or else Emma will always be at Ashina Castle, never checking up on the sculptor. Even if she comes back here if you're going for the purification ending, she won't talk about the Interior Ministry with orangutan. Doing this will also change the dialogue you have with the old woman in the watchtower nearby where you met the Tengu. Many players claim that this is a Dark Souls boss in Sekiro because the main means of defeating him is by whacking away at his health bar rather than breaking his posture. The best tools are the Suzaku's Umbrella and Malcontent, the finger whistle upgrade that stuns apparition type enemies, of which the demon is also one. It's saddening to learn that the lore reason why Malcontent stuns the demon is because the whistle belonged to his former shinobi partner, the Kingfisher, who died to the Guardian Ape. Using Malcontent a third time will cause him to be enraged and immune to its effects. There's this one attack he does where he will do this dance that summons fiery projectiles that track you. and can one-shot you if you get hit. If you look closely at the projectile, you'll realize that it's actually a Buddha statue. This ties to the sculptor's identity, in which he carves Buddha statues with wrathful faces. Many players have claimed that the Demon of Hatred is the hardest boss in Sekiro, and it's easy to see why. He has 3 phases, he's very tanky, hits very hard, defies what constitutes a Sekiro-type enemy. He's so difficult for many new players that they resort to using the Gyoubu cheese strat. Many years ago when I did a no damage run through all the bosses of Sekiro, the demon was the hardest for me to beat without taking damage, so I totally get the sentiments. Honestly, my biggest issue with this boss isn't even the boss itself, but the arrival to reach him takes too freaking long. His arena is where you fought Gyoubu Oniwa. The fastest way to get here is by going through this gate, but it's blocked. Instead, you gotta grapple over this kite, backtrack through almost all of Ashina outskirts, and interact with this sculptor idol. I also dislike how this backtracking deviates so much from the intended story path. After returning from Fountainhead Palace, the story path is that you go straight to Ashina Reservoir, which is where Kuro is waiting. If Wolf wasn't a controllable character, would he think, I should catch up with Kuro and make sure that he's safe? Or I could just go back through all of Ashina outskirts just to see what's happening on the other side of this gate. What would a loyal shinobi of the Divine Heir do in this case? I think the devs made it this way just so we can see the full extent of the Interior Ministry's invasion, but I wish there was a better way that integrates with the story's intended path. Anyways, other than getting to the boss, the Demon of Hatred is a fun boss once mastered, who also has a tragic backstory, and I'm grateful for what he's done for Wolf throughout his journey. A tier. We get to the final area of the game, and we're greeted once again by our rival, Genichiro Ashina, who now wields the second mortal blade. Genichiro is like Emma in this encounter, in which he acts as the warm-up to the true final boss. Despite wielding arguably the most powerful weapon, he's a joke compared to the battle atop of Ashina Castle. He doesn't use lightning, but instead relies on the power of the mortal blade. He's meant to be a reflection of how far the player has grown, and to see if you're ready for the final test. The stages of growth are seen with how Wolf unsheathes his katana before each battle. The first is when he fumbles with the hilt of the katana, revealing how rusty he is. The second is when he correctly places his hand on the hilt and slowly unsheathes it, showing that he's gotten stronger and better. And now the third, he unsheathes Kusabi Maru cleanly without hesitation, reflecting his determination and true strength as a shinobi. If you parry the mortal blade with only Kusabi Maru, no divine confetti on, you will take chip damage even if you have Kuro's charm on. However, the chip damage from deflecting can only be negated with divine confetti or the Phoenix Lilac umbrella, and only the purple umbrella, not the loaded magnet in Suzaku's. This interaction is quite puzzling because the divine confetti and purple umbrella are meant to negate terror, but the black mortal blade doesn't inflict terror. So someone that's very knowledgeable about Sekiro lore is gonna have to explain that to me. We can see that Genichiro at this point is powerless and desperate as he witnesses his beloved Ashina fall. Genichiro is a man who will do anything to save Ashina, even if it means casting away his humanity and his life. In his final moments, he sacrifices himself as an offering to the Black Mortal Blade, to revive the one man who can save Ashina once and for all. Genichiro's acts may have been inhumane, but he is the most tragic character in the game. I still have more to say about him later, but let's move on to the final boss, A tier. And now we get to the true final boss, and who is arguably the best final boss in all of FromSoft gaming history. Unlike the Shura ending Isshin, we now get to fight a younger Isshin Ashina who is in his prime. It's not clear why he is fighting you in this case, despite being against Genichiro's methods of saving Ashina. Perhaps it's because he feels that he owes Genichiro a favor for being revived, or it's because he feels the same way Genichiro does in seeing how much Ashina has fallen. Who knows? However, this whole cutscene with him coming out of his adoptive grandson is quite chilling. Isshin's first phase is similar to his Shura counterpart's first phase, Unlike his older self, he doesn't sidestep if you R1 or thrust him, which makes sense because this is a younger Isshin that's more reckless. He can use the combat art Dragon Flash, which, in case the name isn't a hint, is very flashy. If you get too close to him when he does the Ashina cross, he will cancel it and go for a sweep. And he can do a charged wind attack that can be parried with the right timing. Upon entering second phase, he will magically spawn a spear out of the ground. He is much more aggressive and will always chase you down if you try to run away from him. It reflects on his philosophy, his famous quote he says every time you die to him. If you try to heal at any time, he will always charge to strike you when you're most vulnerable. Like you, he will do anything to win his battles, which reflects the combat philosophy of Ashina, even if it means bringing a gun to a sword fight. Don't ask me how he has a gun. What I love about this fight is that he has so many branches of attacks he can do depending on your actions. There's a lot, but I'll call out 2 examples here. The first is this horizontal slash with the spear while jumping back. He will always follow up with 3 shots from the gun if enough time passes, and then mostly follow that up with a thrust. The second is this combo where he can follow up with either a wind sweep or a thrust. There's so many variations to his attacks, and I love how it keeps the fight engaging while increasing its replay value. This fight has everything, bro. Swords, spears, guns, elemental wind slashes, and one more elemental attack that he can only use in his 3rd phase, lightning. To be honest, I think lightning makes his 3rd phase a lot easier if you master lightning reversal, so I think of this as a reward for making it this far. There's this attack unique to 3rd phase where he will unleash 2 wind slashes. Most players will dodge around the sides, but if you're ballsy enough, you can dodge forward into his 1st slash, and if you time it right, parry the 2nd. Isshin will kneel down and accepts his defeat, allowing you to strike him down with the Mortal Blade, sealing Ashina's grim fate. To end this part, Isshin the Sword Saint is everything you expect from a final boss, the ultimate test to see if you mastered every obstacle the game has thrown at you. I wish I could delve deeper into his lore, but this video is getting too long. It's obvious where he's going on this list. S tier. But it's still not over yet. We still need to cover the 3 inner bosses released by the free update on October 29, 2020. Let's start with Inner Genichiro. For the most part, Inner Genichiro is similar to his base game counterpart at Ashina Castle, but there are some notable changes. Inner Genichiro will always start the fight off with his new combat art, the Sakura dance. I like to deflect the first 2 hits with a sword parry, then use the umbrella on the 3rd hit so I can get in a projected force. In the 1st phase, when he does the jump attack, he will still perform a thrust. However, unlike the base game, in the 2nd phase, Genichiro will always follow up with the thrust. If you remember base game's 2nd phase, the jump attack is usually followed up with a sweep. I think the reason why FromSoft made the inner version this way is so they can catch experienced players off guard who are expecting a sweep from the 2nd phase, but honestly, I think this change just makes Inner Genichiro less versatile. But the one change I really like is in his 3rd phase. He can now do a lightning reversal with Sakura dance. I really like this. It looks so cool and it makes him more badass than he already is. It also makes sense from a lore perspective. According to the Sakura dance description, it was a technique created by his master, Lady Tomoe. And if you gave Emma the Dragon Spring sake to drink, she mentions that she recalls Genichiro practicing his swordsmanship behind the castle with lightning racing from the clouds. I can infer that Genichiro must have been practicing lightning reversal in the event that his lightning gets casted back at him. It would also explain why there's a scroll in Ashina Castle explaining this secret technique. Too bad the base game doesn't allow him to use this technique. He'll only do the lightning reversal if you do a standard reversal or use Sakura dance. Then you can reverse his reverse, if that makes sense. However, he won't do the reversal if you use the Miss Raven, which I think is because he doesn't expect a tool to have such capabilities. Inner Genichiro is a much needed improvement from my favorite character simply because the base version is too easy to beat. Every time I rematch Genichiro, this is the version I always play against, and obviously he's my favorite of the inner bosses too. S tier. Inner Father, aka Owl Father 2.0. Inner Father can now use Mist Raven to evade your attacks. When he uses it, be prepared to deflect his attacks twice as soon as he reappears. He can use the combat art Whirlwind Slash, which is the first combat art you unlock at the start of the game. Sometimes if you're far away enough, he will disappear and leap at you with the Mist Raven. In his second phase, he has 2 Mist Raven sword combos. The first variation goes like this. He reappears with 2 heavy slashes, reappears with a Whirlwind Slash, and reappears with a Jump Slam. I don't know why, but the second hit with the Whirlwind Slash seems to never land, but I still deflect the whiff anyways out of habit. The second variation is that he will reappear to chase you down with a heavy slash, reappear to throw a shuriken, and reappear with an overhead slam. The Flaming Owl Spirit can now either be jumped over if you see a perilous symbol, or be deflected if you don't see the red kanji. Believe me, even though I fought this guy so many times, I still get tripped up by this attack. The red kanji isn't telegraphed fast enough for me to react accordingly, but I still like this change. It makes him more unpredictable. Also, for some reason, even though the Fiery Owl is a seemingly fire-based attack, it can still be deflected without the Suzaku's umbrella. I don't know why this is the case, but using only a sword parry is badass. Inner Father is my second favorite of the inner bosses because of all these changes. In my opinion, Inner Father is the hardest of the inner bosses, simply because his Mist Raven trips me up so much, and still does despite knowing how to deal with it. I find it amazing that one tool added to his arsenal could change this boss so much that he feels like an entirely different boss. For that, Inner Father gets S tier. Okay, Inner Isshin. One more and this is over. I'll make this quick because there's not much differences to Inner Isshin from his Sword Saint counterpart. First of all, he always begins the fight with Mortal Blade powered Wind Sweep that can be safely deflected with the purple umbrella. The second change to Inner Isshin is this specific quick swipe that comes out real fast. The third change is this rising cut and sweep attack that's telegraphed so abruptly that there's another YouTuber that made an entire video teaching players how to deal with this attack. Those are the 3 changes made to his first phase, but the second and third phase combined literally has one new move. If you stand far away enough, Isshin will pause to charge for his sweep attack. He then jumps in the air while swinging his spear up, and then follow with either one of 2 things. The first follow-up is a charged wind attack that's better to deflect with the umbrella. The second follow-up is an aerial thrust that feels so good to Mikiri. Like it comes down with such heavy force, but your Mikiri slams down with much more power. And that's it. That's literally all the changes to Inner Isshin. Unlike Inner Father and Inner Genichiro, Inner Isshin doesn't vary enough from the base game to warrant himself as his own boss. Don't get me wrong, I like these new additions, but all it accomplishes is giving the player more moves to counter. They don't alter the fighting style of Isshin, unlike Owl and Genichiro. I don't want to end this section on a bad note, but even though Inner Isshin is the worst of the 3 inner bosses, it doesn't mean he's outright bad. I'm glad that we have Inner Isshin. In fact, I always prefer to fight this Isshin over the base game, but I could fight the OG and it would still have the same impact. Since he's literally Isshin the Sword Saint but with more moves, and I did play Sword Saint in S tier, Inner Isshin technically belongs to S tier too. Alrighty, that's it. That's all the main bosses of Sekiro ranked. I'm sorry that it took me so long to upload another video. I have a full-time job and life gets in the way. Anyways, what did you think of this video? Do you agree or disagree with my takes? Who's your most and least favorite boss? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video if you do, and have a nice day.